I've been, for 31 years, the unplugged guy in a rock and roll band, playing the mandolin and the bouzouki and the acoustic guitar and the flutes and whistles and percussion. And that they are all these archetypal acoustic instruments, but Jethro Tull as a band has always been a sort of medium to heavy rock band. I always like to come back to the simple and essential elements of singer-songwriter music. Although I wasn't very brave right at the beginning of Jethro Tull, by the time we made the Aqualung album, I had included, I guess, 3 or 4 genuine acoustic pieces, which were predominantly me just playing alone in the studio with acoustic guitar and doing usually a live vocal. 2 or 3 takes, and then maybe we embellished it with a bit of piano or a string quartet or whatever it might be. But essentially, they really were these little acoustic songs. For that reason, I've always felt that the kind of acoustic album that I would make would probably sound like at least a part of Jethro Tull's history. And so I didn't do it. But this time around, I thought I would do the thing the fans would probably expect me to do, which is to make that record that really is Ian Anderson's little part of Jethro Tull, the rock band. So I guess I'm, this time around, just doing the personal, sometimes introverted, sometimes humorous, sometimes quite moody and revealing kind of music that wouldn't really work for me in the context of Jethro Tull now, because Jethro Tull really has this great repertoire of classic rock favourites, at least as far as our fans are concerned, and that tends to make up the bulk of what we choose to play live on stage. So this is kind of me alone in the studio doing my rather private little thing, just with a few other musicians who kindly came along to adorn the product. Well, those of us who are lucky enough to live in the country and wake up in the morning to the sound of birds probably wonder from time to time what it is those birds actually see as the not-so-silent witnesses of bedroom shenanigans. So in this song I suppose I'm just imagining the ultimate in corny chat-up lines where the guy says to the girl, "Hey, spend the night with me and wake up in the morning and learn the secret language of birds."
This sparkling wine is all but empty. Too late for trains and no taxis. I know the feeling seems all too contrived. There was no master plan, but the fact is you must stay with me and learn the secret language of birds. A tentative dawn, about to be breaking on a Rousseau garden with monkeys in hiding. The truth of the matter yet to be spoken in words on which everything's writing. Now stay with me and learn the secret language of birds. Now stay with me and learn the secret language of birds. Circled by swallows in a world for the weary, by warblers, wicked and eloquent trilling. Lie in the stillness, window cracked open, extended moments, hours for the taking. Careless hair on the pillow, a bold brush stroke, painted first with a chorus in waiting. Stay with me and learn the secret language of birds. Yeah, stay with me and learn the secret language
I don't actually get out and wander the countryside as much as I would like to, but it's more of a psychological state of mind. I spend so much of my life sitting in aeroplanes and waiting in airports and hotels in the busiest and biggest cities of the world that when I come home, I do like the idea of the sharp contrast, the peace and quiet, relatively speaking. And it is a great luxury for which I'm eternally grateful that I'm able to work at home. My place of work outside the touring context is really within that more domestic and for me, rural worlds. And I wouldn't like to jump off the plane at Heathrow Airport and then find myself motoring into London. It would just be like where I just came from, because usually necessarily it's a lot of big cities that I do concerts in. So I head for the hills. Not that there are many around here, but it's pastoral and gentle on the eye, and it's gentle on the mind. But I don't spend my time walking around the fields with my trusty gun dog by my side or driving a tractor for a living. That's not my thing. I'm one for creature comforts, but it's a very nice view out of the window. I think there are a lot of tracks on this record that are inspired is perhaps too strong a word, but they certainly make considerable reference to visual images and specific images by specific artists. Like many people of my generation, I began not as a musician, but actually studying painting. And therefore, everything I write does have a visual reference, and in this case, there's quite a few pieces that refer to specific artists. And indeed, the track "The Little Flower Girl" is actually the name of a painting by Sir William Russell Flint. There's other references to specific paintings. An artist called Fowraker, whose work sort of inspired a song on this album called "A Better Moon." And L.S. Lowry, whose famous townscapes with rather matchstick-like figures. Somewhere in the back of my head, in writing the song "Circular Breathing." So there's certainly all these references, and even those that are not directly connected in some way to a painting or artist, they all start from pictures. When I go away on holiday or if I'm traveling around the world on tour, it's always visual references that are the genesis of lyrics of songs. I tend to be an illustrator in that sense. I use lyrics to substitute for the paintings that I don't paint. It's not at all unusual for me to be taking visual references. It's my stock in trade, really. The song "Postcard Day" is really about that point in mid-holiday when you've been there for a few days and that sense of guilt comes upon you, thinking, oh God, I better send some postcards home, otherwise if I leave it till the end, we'll get home before the postcards get to the people and it won't have a point. So there's that sort of crucial moment.
My eyes are white circles above cheekbones on fire, pale hand gripping my pen. Rounding up to the zero, adding infinite fractions, letting 9 become 10. 2 pink doves strut the shingles, picking crumbs from the breakfast I saved for you, dear. And I wish you were here on this postcard day. Focus on the fine, indeterminate line where the sky meets the sea. Desperate midweek words, banal and absurd, freely flow out of me. Well, I may be a hostage to summer, but I'm a hostage, not a slave. And I'm clear, and I wish you were here on this postcard day. Precious cargo of flotsam, mixed memories on an ocean tide. Swim madly with spice from the Orient on a mystery watery carpet ride. With the sun going down, the wind goes around, blows them back out of mind. write circles, staring down past the point of my restless pen. While a ghost of my youth, all sworn to the truth, call my name again. Two brown legs don't make a summer, but two brown arms couldn't keep me away. Well, my dear, I wish you were here on this postcard day.
Favourite over-asked question is, what do you write first, the music or the lyrics? Well, it isn't that easy, because the moment when you think you have a song on the go, or a piece of music on the go, whatever it might be, there is something that comes first, and it's never the same thing. Sometimes it's a title that comes to you, sometimes it's a line of melody, sometimes it's just a chord progression, sometimes it's much more cerebral, it's just some intellectual proposition or just some gut feeling you want to express in a few words. So it could be anything. Could be the lyrics, could be the music, it could be any essential part of either. There are those occasions when you have a piece of musical stuff and it is already seems as if it has a degree of completeness and doesn't require to be developed necessarily with lyrics. Equally, there are occasions when sometimes I think, well, I really like this lyric. What a shame to have to go and ruin it by putting it to music, but I'm not a poet and never wanted to be. And so I end up having to find some music to go with them. In other cases, you just have a nice little tune and you sit and scratch your head for hours and still don't come up with a title you're really comfortable with, but it often helps if you have a title in the first place, I think. And a picture in your head. That's the best thing. I always just come back to this idea of having a notion of what it's going to be, a title if possible, and a picture. And it isn't always a glossy colour picture, it could just be a simple little black and white notion in my head, just form, line, tone, maybe colour, just the same tools of expression as the visual artist has. They all cross over very neatly into the musical domain where we talk about line, tone, colour, form. The semantics are the same. The end result is poles apart, but in yet some ways irrevocably linked. I've always had a soft spot, as I'm sure many people do, and probably do even more now that he's gone, not dead, but at least out of office. Dear Boris Yeltsin finally resigned, and I wrote this song having seen, or a piece of music, but based again on the visual image of a CNN news report when Boris was seeking re-election and was seen in Red Square boogieing frantically in front of a young Moscow rock band, sweating profusely, bright red in the face, but giving major boogie time, and he nearly died from a heart attack. A couple of days later, it obviously took a lot out of him, so I wrote the song Boris Dancing, which is in several rather difficult to follow time signatures, because Boris, when he was dancing, wasn't quite on the beat. He did move the bar lines around a little bit. So Boris Dancing is a celebration of Boris's boogie, with all the awkward time signatures that seem to be inherent in his strange dance style. Jethro Tull is such a busy band. I mean, the happy thing is that the phone keeps ringing and people offer us a job. I'm always very, very grateful for the fact that, you know, offers do keep coming in and they are sufficiently tempting and sufficiently different, not necessarily always sufficiently lucrative, but nonetheless we do get seduced to going to some interesting places and doing interesting shows and reaching the parts that other rock bands don't necessarily reach because they just don't want to go there. The reality is that I spend so little time in the studio doing the creative bit of writing that I'm probably long overdue for doing the kind of record that this one is. I rather suspect that as time goes on that I really must make some greater effort to try and create those little periods, you know, for every, maybe not every year, but every 18 months or so, when I really do sit down to try and do some things that are outside of the Jethro Tull context, that are more about me exploring the sorts of expression that I can as an acoustic musician. So I'm sure this won't be the last one, but I'm equally sure that next time I go into the studio with the notion of making an Ian Anderson solo album, it will sound different to this one. Certainly be the case that I would try and do something definitely and, you know, wholeheartedly down a different direction to this piece. So if you like it, make the most of it, because probably won't be another one of these for a while. Well, set aside probably doesn't mean a great deal to our friends in North America, but basically the agricultural policies that are necessary, it would appear, in this day and age, are to literally set aside areas of agricultural land in rotation, not to produce crops. And the ridiculous irony is, although there are millions of starving people throughout the world, we're actually being paid as farmers in some of the rich Western countries, we're being paid not to grow anything. So set-aside is a rather dubious and rather mysterious and rather a sad reality of modern farming. But, you know, we seem to have to do it. And so I wrote this little song, which is really just a tiny little song. It's just dwelling on the dereliction which attaches itself to farms and to farmers, because it becomes a sadly infectious state of mind. I think it's a very depressive state of mind that visits itself upon farmers who are intrinsically, I think, deeply saddened by the fact that they are being paid not to grow crops. It's a sad world. Make the best of it.
Hardback crows bopping where once ran deep furrows, frazzled oak silhouetted in an ivy dress. Winter sun catches, tucks through thin hedges, throws his long shadow north to the emptiness. Farmhouse in tatters, shattered and battered, even lovers don't go there these last few years. Spiderweb windows on set-aside heroes, landing lost in a landscape of tears. Farmhouse in tatters, shattered and battered, even lovers don't go there these past few years. Spiderweb windows on set-aside heroes, standing lost in a landscape of tears.
I'm always amazed at how many people who do the sort of thing I do for a living, who do actually give extraordinary amounts of money and time to charities, and we don't necessarily always read about it in the papers, which is really very good, because it's all the folks that don't court publicity for their charitable efforts that really deserve our respect and ultimately support. It's a bit dubious, isn't it, when you get involved in this charity thing, that it sort of blurs at the edges between good and bad taste when it becomes too public and too much of a PR move. So I tend to shy completely away from charitable stuff, and there are a few things that I have historically supported, some of them via royalties from some of our records, and some of them just on a rotating basis. You give a little something to somebody because you think it's going to help. I try and do what I think the good moderately successful musician or entertainer will do, which is to try just to do your bit without courting publicity by it. So I forget everything I said. I didn't say any of that. I think probably a lot of people know that I'm quite keen on spicy food. I mean, if you visited our website, you'll probably get a notion for the fact that I like and know a little bit about spicy food, not just Indian food, but all sorts of cooking. And I use a lot of chili peppers when I'm cooking at home. The generally accepted killer maximum number 10 amongst the chili peppers is the habanero. In the Caribbean, a close relative of it is called the Scotch bonnet, which I also refer to in this song. And the Habanero Reel is really just an ode to the world of excessive capsaicin, the chemical in the chili pepper that gives you the sense of burning heat and gives you that endorphin rush that makes you feel good. And as I say in the song, and best of all, it's strictly legal. Yeah, the Habanero Reel, it's all about that hot stuff that makes you burn.
Cool in the corner, tomcat sitting on the edge of the yard, sandflies flitting. Orange order in a field of green smothers me to smithereens. Rum and cola, ice cubes crashing, jumping beans and brown eyes flashing, long hair swinging, tell me how'd you feel? Well, hot and fancy, it's the Habanero Reel. Troubled skin, pour oil upon it. She's fit to burn in her new Scotch bonnet. Spice up anybody's stew. Frogs and goats and chickens too. Rum and cola, ice cubes crashing, jumping beans and brown eyes flashing, long hair swinging, tell me how do you feel? Well, hot and fancy, it's the Habanero Reel. Barefoot in the sunshine, kicking empty beer cans down on the high tide line. Big weight nearly float your dress away, and I'm thinking that it's just another day, just another day. Feel that heart rush start its tickle. Sweat is rising, taste buds prickle. With ears of bat and eye of eagle, it's just as well it's strictly legal. Rum and cola, ice cubes crashing, jumping beans and brown eyes flashing, long hair swinging, tell me how do you feel? Well, hot and fancy, it's the Habanero Reel. Barefoot in the sunshine, kicking empty beer cans down on the high tide line. Big wave nearly float your dress away. Well, and I'm thinking it's just another day, just another day.
I once wrote a song called Teacher, and it was really not a very good song. It certainly was far away from being one of my best efforts. And I've always been embarrassed about it because the reason I actually wrote the song was because I was deeply cynical about some of those guru-like figures who do set themselves up in positions of some degree of power and influence and manipulate sometimes gullible, needful people. I seem to run into quite a lot of people like that who were teachers in that sense, more the guru sense. And so I've always been very, very wary about being considered in any way possibly one of those people. I think one of my big faults is I tend to sound as if I'm lecturing people. Even when I'm doing interviews, it sounds like it's all perhaps sounds too confident and too thoughtful and too deadly serious. But I'm not really like that on the inside. I'm much more insecure, and a lot of the talking and thinking I do is really just working out my own insecurities. So not a teacher, just the class buffoon who gets up on the stage and sings for his supper.